Hi there. Welcome to Small Business Coffee Break, the video series where we take a few minutes to work on your business, not just in it. Today we talk with Jeffrey Daitz about what questions not to ask during an employment interview and who's testing them. Jeffrey has over 20 years of experience in labor and employment law, so grab a cup of coffee and let's get into it. If we're not doing this audit and there is a situation that occurs, it's 100%. We're 100% sure that the defense, the counsel for the opposing party will be doing that audit in a way that you're not even sure. If you let me know a little bit about testers.
Yes. So testers are. It's an excellent segue. Testers are It's an interesting idea. They have testers in all different kind of industries, but years ago I was hired by companies, by CEOs, president and CEOs of companies, to go in as a tester. And what my job was to do was to go in and interview for a position. Obviously, I'm not applying for a position, but interview for the sole purpose of going back to be able to report back to the president, CEO, or CFO as to whether their managers are doing the right thing, whether they have the right interview skills, whether they're asking any inquiries that are illegal. Most companies have absolutely no idea the do's and don'ts and the pitfalls for what kind of questions you should be asking in an interview. They think that they can ask questions. They don't realize that there are certain general questions that they ask. And when I do training seminars, I'm always wary about a couple things. For instance, a resume. Resumes that have at the bottom extracurricular activities, skiing, boating, fishing. Unless the person is applying a job to ski, boat, or fish, why are we even talking about that? Again, it goes away from where you need to be. You're looking for somebody that can perform the best job, the essential functions of the job. So staying on track with where you need to be is absolutely critical. The audit's done the right way. Audits are a streamlined process. Those are all good, great tools to put in place. But everything comes down to still the documentation. Lack of documentation hurts. From our standpoint, we need to see practice and policies and the commitment by a company to do the right thing.
This may be a question that's not best suited for you, but it occurs to me when you were talking there. So one of the questions we often get is, where do we draw the line? Right? So, obviously being a part of a business, and I hope my employees feel this way about ours, is that, we're an extended family. And that means that sometimes we're going to be talking about skiing, boating, and fishing. Mm-hmm. Though I agree that in the interview process that's not necessarily the right place for that conversation. How does a company safely feel comfortable making it an extended family without crossing those kind of scary lines? Like where's the right place for those conversations?
Well, the right place is not pre-employment, that's for sure. Okay. Pre-employment is not the time to start asking questions about a person's family, whether they're married, whether they have children, any of those personal information, because those are illegal inquiries. You can't do that. Again, when I was served as a tester, I would go in there and I would interview positions. I would put myself in a position where I would actually kind of bait the manager into asking me a question. For instance, they would say, why are you interested in working for ABC company? And I would use that as an open door to throw in as many protected classifications as I can. For instance, I would sit there and I'd say, well, I'm interested in working here because I'm recently relocated. Either I could say I was married, divorced, my children go to school here, it's close to a synagogue or church. I'm throwing in right there 3 or 4 protected classifications that are legal questions. If for any reason I don't get the job, and here's kind of the landscape of employment law, you don't have to necessarily discriminate at that basis. If the employee believes or perceives that they didn't get the job because those questions were out there in the field, that's a potential lawsuit right there. So hiring and interview scripts are critical. Most companies don't realize that managers have canned questions that they ask employees, but if those questions haven't been vetted through HR or vetted through employment counsel, the company as a whole could be asking legal questions each and every time. You want to have a rapport with your employees, and I wholeheartedly believe having a rapport is a great thing to have. However, there's a time and a place, okay? You don't meet a new person and all of a sudden become best friends with them, do you? Right? It takes place over time. So does the employment workplace. You can't rush into things, but again, asking them these questions up front early on is not where you want to be. It's, again, morale, respect, dignity are all important things in the workplace. Knowing when to do these things and have the dialogues, very important. Pre-employment inquiries, it's a critical pitfall that most companies don't realize. There are specific things you need to stay away from during an interview. Most companies are not even aware of that list. If I was to go in and ask a company, and we do, I'll ask them, what managers do interviews? Who does the interviewing here? What kind of questions do you ask? Invariably, we could say 8 out of 10 times, managers are asking legal questions. And they don't know.
If you have any questions you'd like to ask Jeffrey, I put his contact information in the description. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask Jeffrey or any other professional in their field, my contact information is also in the description. See you next week for another cup of coffee and more questions answered.